Could insulin resistance be blocking the benefits of exercise? Find out today here on Jimmy Rants. Click on that little box down in the corner and it'll take you straight to IGTV for today's episode. JimmyRants.com is the website, and as always, you can engage live in the content. You got to go follow me. I'm over on Instagram at Living Low Carb Man, LivinLowCarbMan. Once you're there, engage live like all the wonderful people coming in right now. Thank you guys for being here. We're also simulcasting live over here on my Facebook page where I see my regular Norma just got here, and Nancy, Melanie, Brandy. Thank you all for being here today as well. We're also over here on my YouTube channel. Thank you guys for watching the live stream over here, and my regular there is Shirley, and Shirley says hello. Hello, Shirley. So thank you all for being here today on Jimmy Rants. If you missed the live, you can watch it on replay right here on IGTV on Instagram. We also put the past episodes up over on my YouTube channel. Just type in a keyword, Jimmy Rants. You'll find the show or youtube.com/livinglowcarbman. Finally, we have the official website for the show where we keep everything there. JimmyRants.com is that website. You can see all the past episodes. No matter what happens with censorship and all the other things, we will always have all the episodes available at JimmyRants.com. And if I add value to your life in some way, you can definitely add value back to my life by clicking on that Patreon link, and any donation that you can provide would be greatly appreciated. Okay, guys, I have quite the interesting story here today, because we often hear that one of the ways that you help to deal with the obesity and the chronic disease that you deal with, and some of the underlying reasons why that's happening, is to add exercise, right? So we get our diet right, you turn to kind of a paleo, primal, keto, carnivore, whatever your diet of choice is, and through that you think the diet is going to get you so far, and then you add in an element of exercise. And of course, once you get to exercise, not all exercise is created equal. So you've got some aerobic exercise where you're doing a lot of cardio, you're doing a lot of anaerobic exercise, which is a lot of kind of the weightlifting and resistance training. You have HIIT training. There's just so many ways to exercise. But would anybody expect that the underlying insulin resistance that is kind of causing you to have the health and weight issues that you're dealing with would make it so that the benefits you would be getting from exercise would be negated? Would you have even thought about that in any way? I don't think any of us would. But I have a brand new paper that was just published at the end of May. And this was reported on, let me give the website because I love this website, ketodietapp.com, ketodietapp.com. They wrote a great article entitled "Insulin Resistance Blocks the Benefits of Exercise According to a New Report." And so this was pretty shocking when I read this. But I think it's going to be revelatory, get the right word, Jimmy, for people who hear about it, because we think, okay, I'm doing keto and I'm adding in some exercise, so therefore I'm going to get all those benefits from the exercise. And what you're going to find from this paper and this report is maybe you're not. So if that's you, and maybe you've been eating keto and maybe you've struggled trying to figure out, all right, I'm exercising, but I'm not really seeing much benefit, there might be a reason why. So let's get into this. So the paper is called "Molecular Choreography of Acute Exercise." It was published on May 28, 2020 in the journal Cell, and that's one of the pretty prestigious medical journals out there that gets a lot of attention. They reported that insulin resistance blocks the benefits of exercise. Now, isn't that interesting? Like, think about how many people have gone keto, have gone paleo, have gone whatever your chosen diet plan is, and you start getting your diet right. What's the first thing you want to do? You want to wiggle your body. I found that myself when I went on the Atkins diet. I was on it for a month, started at 410 pounds and got down 30 pounds, and very quickly had so much energy that I was like, I gotta wiggle my body. And so I wanted to go walk on a treadmill, wanted to do some exercise. And so people just assume that as an adjunct to your diet that you add in exercise. But for those of us who have insulin resistance, I wonder, did you know that it could be blocking some of the benefits? So let's actually look at the study itself and what the paper discovered. So let's see what they did as well in the study. So for this study, scientists had 36 participants who had varying degrees of insulin resistance. Now, they don't say here how they tested for the varying degrees of insulin resistance. And I guess just for a definition of terms, if you don't know what insulin resistance means, insulin resistance is where you have various markers that are kind of out of whack from what they normally would be for someone who has insulin sensitivity. And so someone who is insulin sensitive, they can eat a carbohydrate-based meal, for example, see the rise in the blood sugar, but then by 2 hours, it's back to normal. Insulin resistance, you see the rise in blood sugar and maybe an even higher rise in the blood sugar than an insulin sensitive person, but then it doesn't quite come back down to baseline after 2 hours, and then maybe it takes 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours before it comes back to normal. That's a sign of insulin resistance. So that's called postprandial blood sugar. And if postprandial blood sugar does not come back to baseline, you probably have insulin resistance. Also, fasting insulin levels being a little bit elevated. So ideally, you want your fasting insulin to be below 5, but definitely single digit. And once you start hitting double digits, that's when insulin resistance is there. You also can see insulin resistance show up in your inflammation markers. Not always. Sometimes people with insulin resistance can hide the inflammation very well, especially if you eat a ketogenic diet. You can keep those inflammation levels low. But if you have higher levels of inflammation, that can be insulin resistance. Again, high triglycerides, low HDL cholesterol. We could go on and on of all these signs, but the main ones are your blood sugar does not respond appropriately to food. And so insulin resistance is a big issue, and you don't develop type 2 diabetes without insulin resistance. You don't develop a lot of chronic diseases without insulin resistance. So most of the diseases that we identify as heart disease, type 2 diabetes, even obesity, PCOS, I mean, I could go on and on down the list of all the chronic diseases, even some cancers. The commonality between all of these diseases is they're all related to insulin resistance. And everybody is like, oh, I have heart disease. I'm like, no, you have insulin resistance. Oh, I have type 2 diabetes. No, you have insulin resistance. And I think once we start seeing it all as the one disease, then you stop categorizing it as all these different things. You can actually deal with it. But if you joined us late, I've got an interesting new report published in the journal Cell. This was just published late last month, called Molecular Choreography of Acute Exercise, and it's making the argument that if you have insulin resistance, then that is blocking any of the benefits that you would get from exercise. So we were just looking at the design of the study. We have 36 participants that had varying levels of insulin resistance, and then they made these people exercise. So before the exercise, as well as at 2, 15, 30, and 60 minutes after the exercise, the scientists took blood from the participants and did an incredible array of multi-omic tests on each sample. So these are not your standard blood tests like you normally get at your doctor, far from it. They were in-depth examinations of their, and I'm going to get real technical here because that's what they did in the paper, transcriptomes, metabolomes, proteomes, lipidomes, and immunomes. Okay, that's a lot of ohms. I don't know what transcriptomes are, but I'm assuming metabolomes are kind of your metabolic health markers. Your proteomes is your proteins, lipidomes is your fats, and immunomes is how your immune system responds. So all of these ohms were then integrated with one another, as well as with information about the participants, to get an unprecedented look at exactly how exercise impacted the human body at a very systematic level. So the study reported many incredible results 10 of which we'll highlight here in just a moment. But let's look at the most heavy, the biggest one in the whole Revelation. The human body is supposed to respond to exercise with cellular responses that collectively make the body adapt and get healthier. Thus, that's the reason you wiggle your body. The reason you go through any kind of workout is you are hoping the body makes adaptations and you get healthier and stronger as a result, right? We all believe that. But in the author's own words in this paper, most of these processes were dampened and some were in fact reversed in insulin-resistant participants. Reversed. In other words, you didn't get healthier, you got worse. So this is kind of eye-opening for people. Now, it's a very small study, so take it for what it is, but realize they actually did some pretty unique research in looking at the actual data from these participants. And it is a human study, so it's not like they did this in a mouse and said, okay, we're going to extrapolate it to humans. These are humans they did this on. The fitness inflammatory signature that is supposed to occur 15 minutes after you exercise as a signal to the body to adapt was blunted in people with insulin resistance, even though insulin-resistant subjects had greater inflammation at baseline. So in other words, the body was already inflamed going in. Again, that's a sign of insulin resistance. And normally you get inflammation in response to exercise, and that's part of the recovery process where you break down the muscle and you're trying to rebuild it, and that inflammation starts that rebuilding. Well, maybe in these people with insulin resistance, they're already seeing inflammation in the body, and maybe the body mistakes that inflammation as the recovery inflammation, and it's not quite doing what it's supposed to do. 30% of proteins and 10% of other metabolites even diverged in the opposite directions when it came to people who had insulin resistance. As compared to healthy insulin sensitive subjects, these opposite responses, including the protein ubiquination pathway, which is important in cellular cleanup, it's similar to autophagy, and the omega-3 fatty acid signaling. Yes, those healthy fats that are found in fish are considered signaling molecules. So I hope I'm painting a picture here that what they found in this report, in this looking at it, is shocking. Like, did you even realize that exercise could even possibly be counterproductive to your health, and that everybody that does exercise doesn't necessarily get the same benefits? If you are insulin sensitive, then you're going to get obvious benefits from exercise because your body and the metabolism and everything is working right. But what if, like the vast majority of people who have some level of insulin resistance, what if you don't get the benefit? Now, is this an argument to not exercise? I don't think so. But it does behoove us to realize if this is a hindrance there, what can we do to try to get it under control? And I think the take-home message, which we'll get to here in a minute with some of the various things in this report, the take-home message is try to deal with your insulin resistance. Try to get that under control. And it could take years, you guys. Like, I've been working on insulin resistance myself for many years, and last year was the first time that I had blood work done where the doctor, and I work with a functional doctor, where the doctor said, okay, Jimmy, you have very clear signs of healing from insulin resistance. I still have leptin resistance. I still have various signs on my body. I have skin tags, and so as long as you have skin tags, that is a manifestation of insulin resistance. And so you keep working at it. You keep doing the things, and it could take years to unravel what it took decades to make happen. So, but it means that when I exercise, I may not get all the full benefits of it as long as there is still that inkling of insulin resistance there. So what does all this mean in layman's terms? This suggests that when a person is insulin resistant and they exercise, that some of the good molecules that are supposed to go up, they go down instead. And vice versa for the bad molecules. Some of the ones that were supposed to go down, they actually go up. From a 50,000 foot view, this actually makes sense if you think about it. Insulin resistance is a marker of metabolic dysfunction. So why should we expect a body with dysfunction in metabolism to be responding adaptively to exercise? And that's a great point. And this is why those people that try to push you to go to exercise to get healthy, I often say, no. Get healthy, and then you'll want to exercise. Get healthy, and then the exercise will do more. This is why I always hated The Biggest Loser. Because you would watch these poor, morbidly obese people, on day one, they would throw them up on a treadmill. Then what they would do is they wouldn't do anything about their insulin resistance. They would throw them on a treadmill and work them to death and scream at them, berate them, blah, 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 blah. And then they had them under-eat calories. So not only are they stressing their bodies doing this exercise that's counterproductive, but at the same time, they're not nourishing them well. How about we flip the script? How about you get nourished well? How about you start eating properly? And through that eating properly, you start to heal your insulin resistance. And then from there, add in exercise. That seems to be prudent. Does this mean if a person is overweight and insulin resistant that they should not exercise? Not exactly. It does suggest, though, that metabolic health is a predecessor of exercise. In other words, if you're overweight or insulin resistant, it's important you get your nutrition in order first. Food is so much more than fuel. And this is a great reminder that we don't eat keto for no good reason. We eat keto because it directly impacts hormones in our body. And we eat keto to help lower inflammation, lower insulin, lower blood sugar, lower blood pressure, all of these things that would put your body in a better state to heal from the insulin resistance. And once your body's healed, then you add in these things. It's almost as if like you had an injury and you went to a physical therapist to help with that injury. Let's say your knee was injured and you went to a physical therapist to rehabilitate your knee. Would you start adding in squats at the gym while you're trying to rehabilitate your knee? No. What you would do is you would fully heal the injury to your knee, and let's call that the insulin resistance, and then you would add in the appropriate exercise at the appropriate time. Makes sense, right? Insulin resistance, which is strongly associated with being overweight, blocks all these benefits of aerobic exercise at a cellular level. So let's look at the top 10 findings from the paper. That was a big one, what I just shared with you. But they're going to share, and again, this is from ketodietapp.com. Number 1, insulin resistance, which is strongly associated with being overweight, will block the benefits of aerobic exercise at a cellular level, which now we kind of get that understanding. It kind of makes sense. And so does it mean you don't exercise at all in the midst of trying to lose weight and trying to be healthy when you still have insulin resistance? I don't think so. I think maybe you target your exercise. Maybe, and they're of course talking about aerobic exercise. So people that run on a treadmill, who do a spin class, who do all of these things aerobic. I wonder what it means to strength training. I wonder what it means to people who do HIIT training, high intensity interval training. I wonder just what it means for all the other forms of exercise that are not aerobic. It doesn't say anything about that here. Of course, I think most people should be doing some strength training, resistance training, HIIT training anyway over aerobic. Aerobic is just a supplement to what you're doing. Number 2, the fitness inflammatory signature refers to the acute inflammatory response that is supposed to happen about 15 minutes after exercise to signal the body to adapt. It appears to be driven by the molecules IL-5 and TGF-beta. This response is blunted when you have insulin resistance. So again, people with insulin resistance tend to have some higher inflammation levels, and so maybe the body mistakes that inflammation that's already in the body as the inflammation that would help in the healing process post-exercise. It's really fascinating if you stop and think about it that way. Number 3, while most fatty acids decreased in response to exercise because they were burned as fuel, the omega-3 fats like EPA and DHA went up after exercise. This is likely because omega-3 acts as an anti-inflammatory signaling molecule and initiates an adaptive response to compensate for the inflammatory effects of exercise. So again, this is the importance of fatty acids and why you need them in your diet. Number 4, in insulin-sensitive participants, the protein ubiquination pathway, which is important in cellular cleanup like autophagy, went up. In insulin-resistant participants, it actually went down. I also wonder out loud, apart from the exercise, people with insulin resistance who go on an extended fast, for example, and we do it primarily for a lot of reasons, but one of the reasons, especially 3+ days, is for the autophagy. And I wonder if some of this protein ubiquination pathway that's important in the cellular cleanup, I wonder if that means some of us that have insulin resistance that fast for 3+ days, we're not quite getting the cleanup that we think we're getting from autophagy. Again, I'm just thinking out loud here, but it makes sense if insulin resistant participants see this pathway go down, not up. That could be another reason why you might not be getting the full benefits, not just of exercise, but of even fasting. Number 5, there was a wide variation among participants in responses of hunger and fullness hormones, ghrelin and leptin, to exercise. This predicts exercise will make people, different people, hungry or not to varying degrees. I've been talking to people over the years who say, oh, go into a gym workout in a fasted state. Just don't eat anything whatsoever before you go to the gym. You'll burn more fat. You'll have full energy, blah, 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 blah. Anybody ever heard that from people? Yeah, so did I. And so for the longest time, I would believe them, and I'd go to the gym and I'd start doing a very glycolytically demanding weightlifting exercise, for example, and I would be dizzy and lightheaded and starving. And I came to the conclusion that that was not axiomatic for everyone. And for me, I determined that I needed to probably have a little something to eat before I work out. Now, again, I know there's certain things that get turned on when you eat food before working out that you kind of want to keep at bay, but I think you also have to listen to your body. And if your body tells you you need to feed yourself, it could be your insulin resistance that is kind of mandating that. Number 6, exercise stimulated the release of thyroid hormone, the metabolism boosting hormone. We know that. That's pretty much a known entity. Number 7, exercise stimulates the release of insulin. This is a funny one, you guys. I have people panicked all the time. They say, I just got done with my workout. I tested my blood sugar and my blood sugar was 147. I'm keto. How is this possible? I'm like, you're kidding me, right? Like, you don't realize that when you do exercise and when you are heavy lifting exercise or doing some really vigorous activity, that's not releasing blood sugar into your bloodstream. And if you're insulin resistant, that your insulin will be promoted, but you won't be able to see it control your blood sugar as easily. So you might have a good post-exercise level of blood sugar over 100. I've seen as high as 177, somebody wrote me one time, post-workout. Now, they did some really hardcore working out, but it's normal. And of course, what happens is all that blood sugar is in the bloodstream to give you energy while you're doing this glycolytically demanding workout. Well, after it calms down, a couple of hours later, you test the blood sugar and it's in a completely normal range, but people freak out about it and they forget that exercise stimulates this kind of a response. The insulin response is meant to drive glucose as fuel into muscles during exercise. So it serves a good purpose. Let's not let our own idea of what higher levels of blood glucose in the body, let's not let that jade us what we think of under normal circumstances when we see it under a very abnormal circumstance with exercise. how you're testing and when you're testing and what the context is all matters. And so in response to exercise, glucose is going to go up. The insulin spike in response to exercise is overblown in insulin resistant individuals. In other words, you get an even higher level of insulin. Of course, some people are like, well, if it's higher insulin, that should be driving my blood sugar down. But remember, when you're insulin resistant, it means your cells aren't hearing what your insulin is saying. Therefore, it's driving more insulin, but there's still elevations in your blood sugar. And that higher insulin is not good in the body. And it suggests they are more likely to go hypoglycemic post-workout. So maybe you see a blood sugar reading that's high, but then you start to feel weak. You start to feel extremely hungry. Suddenly, you start to feel dizzy. That's hypoglycemia. And that can happen when you're insulin resistant, because your insulin resistant body is going to pump out even more insulin. Number 8, exercise stimulates an increase in fatty acid binding proteins that help the heart and skeletal muscles suck up fat and burn it for fuel. Again, that's a commonly known thing about exercise. Number 9, hippuric acid is a marker of gut microbiome diversity, which is assumed to be good. Hippuric acid also predicts maximum oxygen consumption, the peak VO2, which is among the best predictors of longevity. So again, that's a benefit of exercise that this paper confirmed. And then finally, number 10, telomeres are the measuring sticks of your cellular age. So we all have our age. I'm 48. And then your telomeres will tell you what your cellular age is. Some people, their cellular age is right at what their biological age is. Some people are much younger, by as much as 10 to 15 years younger. Some people are much older, by as much as 10 to 20 years. So knowing your telomeres helps you know what your cellular age is. Telomerase is the enzyme that builds up telomeres. And in fact, the people who discovered this won the Nobel Prize in Physiology and Medicine in 2009. Telomerase signaling was increased for 60 minutes after exercise, suggesting that exercise will help to reverse cellular aging. However, the response, for those of you that are insulin resistant, is much, much weaker. So I think the bottom line in this revelation that we're having here today is if you're overweight and insulin resistant, it's probably a good idea to get your diet right first, so that your body can be metabolically ready for the exercise. And I think we sometimes put the cart before the horse. We put so much emphasis on the movement, which again, don't get me wrong, I think movement has a lot of great benefits. But could it be counterproductive? Could it be that having insulin resistance is blocking some of those positive effects that you're hoping to get from your exercise? Did you realize this? Did you know this? Is this something that, okay, now you understand why maybe you're not getting the same benefits with exercise that, say, someone else that you know is following keto is, because they're insulin sensitive, you're insulin resistant. So maybe the take-home message for you guys is get your insulin resistance in order, and by doing that, then start implementing the exercise to get the full benefits to your health. I'm really excited to see what you guys have to say about this one here today. So we're going to go to Instagram first, then over to Facebook, finally over to YouTube. Thank you all for being here today on Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com is the website. See what you guys have to say on this one. What, no questions, Instagram? Is everybody in stunned silence because this is such a revelation? I mean, who would have thought that exercise in any context could be a bad thing? And I'm not saying exercise in and of itself is bad, but in the context of an insulin resistant person, dealing with the insulin resistance does seem to be par for the course here. Now, some people will push back and say, well, exercise helps in healing insulin resistance, so why would you tell people not to exercise? Again, I'm not telling people not to. I'm just saying, according to this report that was published in a very prestigious journal, they're saying that maybe it's a little more counterproductive than productive, and get your diet right, get your insulin resistance under control before you start implementing this. So, all right, let's see what you guys have to say here on Facebook. What's up, guys? Tammy says, this has been my situation with insulin resistance and lupus inflammation. Excessive exercise makes me feel very inflamed and ill. Small amount of resistance exercise is much more tolerable. And I think that's the take home. I think you find the level of exercise that's right for you. You know, it's like those people that said go into an exercise day fasted. And I tried that. I tried it multiple times. And about the 10th time that I was seeing stars and blacking out lifting heavy weights, I thought, okay, that must not be true for Jimmy Moore. And so let me adjust how I do things. And I added a little bit of food before I go work out, and it fixed everything. So it's like everything else. There is no one size fits all approach. And certainly this whole idea of going into an exercise session in a fasted state may not be true for everyone. So thank you for sharing your experience, Tammy, and thank you, Facebook. You guys need to talk more today. We're going to have a very short Jimmy rants if you don't give me a few more comments. All right, let's go over here to YouTube. Kim Cole says, I'll listen later. Thank you. ML says, this is good information. Thank you for that. Shirley says, the body is a complicated piece of machinery. That was such a great article. Yeah, I think sometimes we want to put health in a box. We've done it with diet for so long. This is the one and only way to get healthy. That's what the dietary guidelines for Americans has always been. And so when you have this kind of narrow, monolithic way of looking at things, you think, okay, it's kind of a one size fits all. And what this underscores to me more than anything is there is no one size fits all. We are bio-individual. We do have specific needs that are tailored to who we are as people, where we are in our metabolism at this point in our lives. And I think we need to recognize that. And so I think studies like this, reports like this, definitely makes that a little more prescient than we've probably seen it before. So if you came in late, guys, this is a paper that was published in the May 28, 2020 journal Cell. And so go look this up. It's called Molecular Choreography of Acute Exercise. And it makes the claim that insulin resistance could be blocking some of the benefits of exercise. I see my friend Tammy chime back in over here. I've got to share this with my family. Yeah, you do. Hey, what's up, Amber? She says hello. Locon says, I finally connected the dots for the 3 times I fainted. Yes, people faint in the gym because they hear you have to go into it in a fasted state. And if you're not fasting, you're not going to get all the fat burning benefit. I've heard that so many times. And my personal experience says, hey, I can't do that. And when I have tried that multiple times and I replicated the same seeing stars and blacking out every time I lifted very heavy, it made me realize, okay, that is not a truism for Jimmy Moore. And it wasn't until I kind of switched things up. And so let that be a lesson for you, that you're going to hear things and maybe you have insulin resistance and maybe this isn't your experience at all. Maybe you get some of the great benefits, but hopefully having this on your radar screen that maybe you've struggled a little bit, maybe this can explain why you've been struggling. That's it for this episode of Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com is the website. And as always, you can engage live in the content right here on Instagram. We go live at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, Monday through Friday, sometimes in the evening at 5 p.m., sometimes on the weekends, but definitely Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, right here on Instagram. I am at Livin' Low Carb Man, LIVINLOWCARBMAN. Once you're there, you can engage live just like all these wonderful people did here today. Thank you for being here. We also simulcast live over here on my Facebook page. Thank you guys, as well as on my YouTube stream. Thank you all for being a part of the Jimmy Rants family. If you missed the live here on Instagram, we do have it on replay on IGTV, so go check it out there. We also throw all the past episodes up over on YouTube. Just type in a keyword Jimmy Rants. You'll find the show, and kind of a cool tip. If you want to see if I've talked about something, put in quotation marks Jimmy Rants and then in quotation marks some keyword like cholesterol. and you'll find all the Jimmy Rants episodes I've done talking about cholesterol. So that's pro tip over on YouTube. We also, on Tuesdays on the Livin' La Vida Low Carb Show, that's my longstanding podcast, we air the best of Jimmy Rants over there. That's at llvlc.com. And then finally, we have jimmyrants.com is the official website for this show. You can see all the past episodes there. And if you like what you hear and you get value out of what I do here, just click on that Patreon page, and it definitely helps keep us on the air. All right, you guys, thanks for being here today, and we'll be back again real soon.